your side. Nyezi esamile mkhathini Elanga lisaphume mpumalanga Nezingane zilala zidlile Okushukuthi umdalo sasibhekile Okushukuthi umdalo sasibhekile Okushukuthi umdalo sasibhekile Okushukuthi umdalo sasibhekile
But we can't sing something from the list.
Chigele maweni ngiyahamba, chigele maweni ngiyahamba, chigele maweni ngiyahamba. Chile Zimbabwe ngiyahamba, Chile Lesotho ndiyemuka, Chile Swazini ndiyemuka. Chigele zangezwa ndiyahamba, chigele mbangeni ndiyemuka, chigele showe ndiyahamba, chigele Thekwini sendimgile.
Okushukuthi umdalo sasibekile. Okushukuthi umdalo sasibekile.
indobo bonile. Oh, indobo bonile. Oh, indobo bonile. Oh, indobo bonile. Indobo bonile. Oh, indobo bonile. Oh, indobo bonile. Hey, indobo bonile. Hey, indobo bonile.
Good morning, everyone. We are a little bit delayed, waiting for our two keynote speakers. They are stuck on the traffic, but they are coming. So they will keep us entertained just for a few more minutes. Thank you. Or I can entertain you as well. I can sing too.
ntombi endiyithandayo, uthanda izulu mandicabanga ngawe, uzobuya nini? Sithandwa sami, ndicabanga ibhasi, ndicabanga iteksi, ndicabanga isitimela, kodwa sithatha kancane, ngoba yikho ndizothenga ibhano, uzobuya nini? Sithandwa sami, ndicabanga ibhasi, ndicabanga iteksi, ndicabanga isitimela, kodwa sithatha kancane, ngoba yikho ndizothenga ibhano, uzobuya nini? Sithandwa sami, Lizzy, oh Lizzy, akukho ntombi endiyithandayo, uthanda izulu mandicabanga ngawe, uzobuya nini? Sithandwa sami, Lizzy, oh Lizzy, akukho ntombi endiyithandayo, uthanda izulu mandicabanga ngawe, uzobuya nini? Sithandwa sami, ndicabanga ibhasi, ndicabanga iteksi, ndicabanga isitimela, kodwa sithatha kancane, mara yikho ndizothenga ibhano, uzobuya nini? Sithandwa sami, ndicabanga ibhasi, ndicabanga iteksi, ndicabanga isitimela, kodwa sithatha kancane, mara yikho-ke ndizothenga ibhano, uzobuya nini? Sithandwa sami, ndizothenga mna, 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 uzobuya nini? Sithandwa sami. funky love, the love that you can't resist. Spunky love, the love that you can't resist. Spunky love, the love that you can't resist. Spunky love, the love that you can't resist. Wambi's on my photos, Wambi's on Tululu, Omtande Baba Wam, Epsena Sebubi. Wambi's on my photos, Wambi's on Tululu, Omtande Baba Wam, Epsena Sebubi. Wambi's on my photos, Wambi's on Tululu, Omtande Baba Wam, Epsena Sebubi. Spunky love, the love that you can't resist. Spunky love, the love that you can't resist. Wambi's on my photos, Wambi's on Tululu, Omtande Baba Wam, Epsena Sebubi. Wambi's on my photos, Wambi's on Tululu, Omtande Baba Wam, Epsena Sebubi. Spunky love, the love that you can't resist. 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 Wambi's on my photos, Wambi's on Tululu, Omtande Baba Wam, Epsena Sebubi. Wambi's on my photos, Wambi's on Tululu, Omtande Baba Wam, Epsena Sebubi. Wambi's on my photos, Wambi's on Tululu, Omtande Baba Wam, Epsena Sebubi. Spunky love, the love that you can't resist. Spunky love, the love that you can't resist. Spunky love, the love that you can't resist. Spunky Bunky love, the lover that you can't resist.
Spunky, spunky, spunky.
Spunky Bunky love, the lover that you can't resist.
Oh, indobo go bonile.
Indabagaba no mangila sumlenze. Indabagaba.
Oh, indobo go bonile.
Indabagaba no mangila sumlenze. Indabagaba.
Hey, indobo go bonile.
Indabagaba no mangila sumlenze. Indabagaba.
Hey, indobo go bonile.
Indabagaba no mangila sumlenze. Indabagaba.
Hey, indobo go bonile.
Indabagaba no mangila sumlenze. Indabagaba.
Hey, indobo go bonile.
Indabagaba no mangila sumlenze. Indabagaba.
Hey, indobo go bonile.
Indabagaba no mangila sumlenze. Indabagaba.
Hey, indobo go bonile.
Indabagaba no mangila sumlenze. Indabagaba.
Hey, indobo go bonile.
Indabagaba no mangila sumlenze. Indabagaba.
Hey, indobo go bonile.
Indabagaba no mangila sumlenze. Indabagaba.
Hey, indobo go bonile.
Indabagaba no mangila sumlenze. Indabagaba.
indobo ngobonile.
Indaba noma ngilahla umlenze. Indaba
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 Indobo ngobonile.
indaba noma ngilahla umlenze.
Indobo ngobonile.
Indaba noma ngilahla umlenze. Indaba Selekabele Kitapa, Ukokotane, Ikriha Lendela, Ukokotane, Ikriha Lendela, Ukokotane, Ikriha Lendela, Ukokotane, Ikriha Lendela, Ukokotane.
Sapolayo, Morena Bulu.
us live and strive for freedom in South Africa, our land.
Ghana, Cameroon, and fellow South Africans. Oh, before I forget, Your Highness, from Singapore. Our postgraduate students, our support staff, and our distinguished guests receive my warmest greetings. The theme for this particular conference is Beyond Pandemic: Rejuvenation, Regenerated, and Recovery through Innovation. And I can see that all of us here, we are rejuvenated. That's why we are here. This is our third Mbali International Conference. Mbali meaning the flower. But that Mbali that you see is not for the flower, but it's management, business, administration, law, initiatives. That is the Mbali. So today, there is a lot that we need to discuss. So before we go there, we all know that the pandemic, it has changed the way we do things. So it is fulfilling for us to gather here today, face to face, instead of having our online conversations with other academics. So it gives me pleasure to say to you, welcome to the University of Zululand. I can see that our platinum sponsor, they've arrived. Welcome, ABSA. Although I will be sending the new invoice to ABSA. Colleagues, our sponsors, distinguished guests, allow me to introduce myself to you. I am Professor Nana Vezimakigaba, but you can call me Prof. Nana if you want. But my colleagues, they call me Prof. Makigaba. Our first person to present here is one of the best leaders I've known, Professor Reiling, who will come here and welcome us to this particular conference.
Good morning, every distinguished guest. I'm not going to repeat all protocol observed. It is, what a wonderful pleasure, what a wonderful experience to stand here in front of you. As Nana said, we always have an international conference every second year, and we couldn't do it in 2020. We thought about doing only an online conference, but we were all under stress, and people were falling ill, and the whole world came to a standstill. And we thought, This is not the right time to have an exciting, jubilant conference of pleasure. That was just not the right time. But this is the right time. The timing of this conference after COVID-19 is absolutely the right time when we need to sit together and rethink everything. And this is why the theme of this conference, Beyond the Pandemic, is absolutely what we need to focus in on the time. I don't think any of us in our whole lifetime would think that something can bring the whole world to a standstill, like the pandemic did. I don't think it was something that anyone would ever work into a model and to say, all right, in the year 2020, there would be a total clash and it's a break and etc. No, we did not expect this. We still don't exactly know what is happening, why it happened. But it was an eye-opener. It is the most hugest, biggest impact that it had on the world ever. Not even any of the world wars brought the whole world to a standstill. It was just this one virus that managed to do that. And therefore, this conference here is beyond that. What next? We can't just say, okay, the COVID is gone and done, and some still wear masks, and some still die, and some still get it, and we test here and there. But let's go back to 2019. We can never go back to 2019. It is a new way of thinking. We have to think differently. We have to think and we have to learn from what happened during the pandemic and what now, what next. New paradigms are created. It's a new world order that has been formed. There is things that we are aware of that we never were aware before. We all became complacent about our health. And we just carry on. I think we all have a new health protocol that we observed in terms of it is a change, a total change. I don't go around hugging and kissing everyone anymore. And I will definitely not blow out candles on a birthday cake and expect everyone else to eat it afterwards. So it is different. We are supposed to be different and think different and innovatively. I was just thinking last night about my age and what is everything that happened. I don't see myself as extremely old, but yes, what happened? We didn't have a computer when I was young. I did my PhD on a typewriter, and cut and paste means you took a scissor and you cut out the scissor section that you don't want, and you paste a new section in with sellotape. That was cut and paste. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have Google. And I think if I ask my students now, please switch off your internet and Google, etc., and write me a piece of work, they're all lost. They will not be able to do that. I didn't know about even 3IR. What about 4IR and 5IR? And this is how fast things developed. And then on top of that, a pandemic that can bring us all to a standstill. So my challenge is to everyone here, and in line with our theme, we have to think new. We have to think different. Something that I've learned from the pandemic is that South Africans are strong. Africans are strong. Although the rest of the world thought Africa would be the one continent that would be really harshly impacted by COVID in terms of the health. It didn't happen. But we were harshly impacted in terms of economics and the business and economic impact. So we have something to offer from Africa. We have labor, we have strong labor, we have strong resources, we are strong people. And this is now the time where Africa need to start thinking new. And this is all in line with the view, mission and vision of the University of Zululand, a node for African thought, where we are starting to think about what is our inherent knowledge that we don't share with the rest of the world. And we do have a lot of knowledge. We have indigenous food, we have indigenous knowledge, we know about plants, etc. There is a lot of knowledge embedded in Africa, in Africans, that is not shared. It is not general. It's not general knowledge. It's not written up in theories. It is not written up in hypotheses. And this is what we are here. I've quickly looked at the program. And remember, Mbali is, like Nana said, it is the whole faculty. It's a faculty endeavor, and that is what's making this conference totally different. It's not it's not an economics or business or law conference. It is an integrated conference with a lot of different papers, etc. But I look at that, and there is on the program around about 240 researchers that contributed to this. There's less papers, but there's co-authors. But a co-author, 2 or 3 co-authors, means everyone put the knowledge together. That is a lot of knowledge. But the challenge is still, let's think new. Let's do different. Let's think different. Let's see what we as Africans can give back to Africa. Then, to all the keynote speakers, there's a reason that you have been given such a title. Thank you for your presence here. We are looking forward to your presentations and your experience. So welcome to every presenter. And I just want us one thing. The 3 people that sang here in front, they're not professionals. The first one is, he's a lecturer in economics. And then the students and everyone that is here is all from UniZulu. Nobody professional, and I think they really deserve a round of applause for wonderful entrance. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Greiling. And the people that were here, they are my band. Yes. Without wasting time, the camera crew, they are requesting that when we take pictures, we need to observe that there are cameras that are recording the entire event. So be mindful when you take those pictures. Don't stand in front of the cameras. Without wasting time, I would like to call our Deputy Vice-Chancellor, Professor Nomlomo, to come forward and welcome us to this university. Thank you.
I think I have to drop this down, otherwise I'm going to vanish. You won't see me. Thank you. Thank you very much to the Dean of the Faculty of Commerce, Administration and Law, Professor Greiling, and our Program Director, Professor Nana Vezi Makigaba. And I just want to acknowledge that we have talent at UniZulu. You have seen it. Can we give a round of applause? We have very, what's that now? We have great talent.
Recording stopped.
Okay. Let me move on. Well, I stand here in the absence of our Vice-Chancellor, Professor Mdose, Xoliswa Mdose.
Recording in progress.
This is disturbing. Okay, I'll go on. Please ignore that. I'm sorry about that. I'm standing in for Prof. Xoliswa Mdose. I'm not Professor Mdose. My name is Vuyo Nomlomo. I'm Professor in Language and Literacy Studies, but I'm the Deputy Vice-Chancellor at the University of Zululand. Prof. Mdose is on an academic trip overseas, and I think they made an exchange with the High Commissioner of Singapore. because she went over there and we have the High Commissioner from Singapore here. Isn't it that wonderful? Well, Sanibonani, Goeiemorgen, Dumelang, Molweni, good morning, everyone. As I've already stated, unfortunately, our Vice Chancellor couldn't be with us this morning, and she's extending her warm greetings to everybody who's here this morning. And before I welcome you formally to the University of Zululand, I wish to acknowledge the presence of the following colleagues. The Dean of the Faculty of Commerce, Administration and Law, as I've already stated, Professor Lorraine Greiling, the Chair of the Mbali Conference, who's also the Deputy Dean of Research in the faculty, Professor Kasiram. Can you raise your hand, Prof, so that they can see you? And the Deputy Dean of Teaching and Learning in the faculty, Professor Magigaba, who's our Program Director this morning. Our keynote speaker for this section, Mr. Keketso Mutswene. I'm sure you'll see him when he comes forward. I don't have to ask him to raise his hand. He's the ABSA Managing Executive, who's here to share with us his experiences in the field. You are welcome, Mr. Mutswene. Our keynote speakers for the rest of this conference and luminaries, Mr. Mataha, the High Commissioner to South Africa from Singapore, delegates from the various institutions, locally and internationally. When I looked at the conference book, I realized that all the institutions, all the South African institutions are represented, and that is very, very heartwarming. Welcome, colleagues. All speakers at the conference, our friends at the University of Zululand, ladies and gentlemen, once again, good morning. I would like to start with a congratulatory note to the organizing committee of Mbali, especially the chairperson, Professor Kasiram, and his team, and also the dean of the faculty, Professor Greiling, and all the members of the FCAL, that is the Faculty of Commerce, Administration and Law at large, for ceaseless efforts over the years to make Mbali an academic trademark of UniZulu across the world. The first Mbali conference, as you have been told, was inaugurated in 2016 under the deanship of Prof. Tewari. I think Prof. Tewari, I saw him this morning over there. He's the pioneer of this Mbali conference. The second one was hosted in 2018. And as you have heard the Dean, unfortunately it couldn't take place in 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. But here we are today, and we have slogged through the pandemic, and the faculty has come again with a big bang Mbali of 2022. It's a big bang. You'll realize as we go along as to why I'm saying it's a big bang. The conference theme, Beyond the Pandemic, Rejuvenation, Regeneration, and Recovery Through Innovation, is an expression of new and fresh ideas and insights of intellectual rigor, and we're looking forward to those discussions. This indicates a spirit of incessant winner who does not give up. That is the faculty. We have to applaud the faculty for not giving up despite the challenges pertaining to our experiences with regard to the COVID-19. I think we have to give the faculty a big round of applause. Well, the program director and the dean have already stated what Mbali stands for. It's an acronym for Management, Business, Administration, and Legal Initiatives. It really means, it really represents what it means. That is a flower or pathway to greatness. It's a flower, Mbali is a flower in the local language, isiZulu. But in my own language, it would refer to history, Mbali. Yes. In isiXhosa, Mbali, which is a flower in Zulu, is intyatyambo. And Mbali would be history. So when I combine the two, the flower and the history, they make such a great impact to say that we've made history at UniZulu by hosting the Mbali conference for all these years. And Mbali is blossoming as a flower. It's growing from strength to strength. So what a nice acronym. So I want to applaud those people who came, who put their brains together and came up with this acronym. It's a brilliant one. Well, during the past few years, the faculty has produced a good amount of research. For example, in 2016, FCAL produced about 4 or 5 articles as output, and the output has now increased to about 36 articles in 2021, and almost the same in 2022, despite the challenges that have been experienced during COVID-19. I don't mean that this success is solely due to Mbali, but I believe Mbali was just an inner expression of FCAL, and the subtle Mbali energy later percolated around and was successful in creating a culture of research in the faculty. I consider this an important activity that every faculty should do. Interestingly enough, every faculty is doing it. We're seeing quite a lot of conferences hosted by different faculties. In that sense, Mbali was a forerunner of so many conferences in our university. This is also important in the sense that Mbali exposes members of the faculty to the academic world. So as an institution, we would like to see more Mbalis, flowers, and histories being made in our institution. In the last 20 years or so, I think the paradigm for the existence of the universities has changed. In the old days, a university was a place of teaching, and research was personal preference. If you did research in those days, you were praised and valued, but there was no monetary reward. Over the years, a new thinking began to emerge. That is, research now is seen as the foundation of university activities. Research creates new knowledge, which is essential for human and economic progress. So to be an effective teacher, not a popular one, you must be able to change the cognitive map of students and make them ready for the real world of work. You must possess knowledge, new knowledge, but you must also be a creator of knowledge. Hence, you must have good research credentials as a teacher. A good researcher can do better teaching and better community work. Knowledge can empower one to be a good administrator as well. That is why we have teaching, research, community engagement, and administration as the 4 key pillars of the performance of individuals in our institution, that is UniZulu. The other reason why universities need to be a place of strong research is that we are finally moving to the knowledge economy to produce high-value goods and escape, to a large extent, the law of diminishing returns that we experience today. So, if we cannot invent and innovate, we can't move into the knowledge economy. That is why I say we need more research, but more than research, we need good quality and innovative research. That's why, as UniZulu, we pride ourselves in our new strategic plan, that is UniZulu Vision 2027, with focusing on the quality of research as well as the quality of teaching and learning. As a researcher myself, I know the difficulties and challenges in doing research, and I will mention a few, such as limited time for research, lack of funding, lack of writing skills, especially if you're writing in a second language. We can't run away from that truth. Lack of mentors. I just said I'm going to mention just a few. But UniZulu, I would confidently say that UniZulu is the best place to do research. The reward that we give to our researchers is perhaps the best in the country. So I would like to urge all the researchers to exploit all the opportunities given to them, so that as an institution, we increase our research output, so that we don't receive a reduced budget and further cuts in our resources. We have only one choice, that is to publish good quality research and engage in good quality teaching. Furthermore, I would like to make a special note as to why social and management faculties need more and good quality research. You'll realize that in faculties such as the natural and medical sciences, these faculties can invent new machines, produce surgery, or produce fertilizers, and so on. This helps with the production process in terms of lowering costs and giving convenience to people. This production is visible, and you can appreciate it, you can see it, it's there. In social and management sciences, however, research outputs are invisible as a machine, or in the form of a machine or a new drug. But social research plays an important role in making resources do better by providing a new policy alternative and other innovations. Poor social and management research in the country will bring an imbalance, and our policy-making process will not be robust, and we will not have good policies. So your role is very valuable in terms of producing policies and people who will do good to the nation. Here I'm referring to social and management sciences. For example, a farmer with a poor management plan, but with a good set of resources and technology, will not do well enough compared to the farmer who has a good management plan with little resources and modest technology. Therefore, good social and management science research is a must for the human or economic progress. Japan is a living example of this, despite not having good resources as we do in Africa. Japan has done so well, you'll agree with me. That is why I would like to indicate the following with regard to research. Research should promote sustainability, not extinction. Research should be problem-solving, not for ivory towers. Research should benefit the community and the nation at large. Research should be inclusive and promote citizenry values. Last but not least, research should have a local, regional, and global impact. I hope that you will have robust and intellectually engaging discussions at this Mbali conference. And those discussions will contribute immensely towards rebuilding our economy, especially in our context, South African context, and also in advancing the socio-economic agenda and sustainability of our country and that of the global world. With these few words, once again, a warm welcome to UniZulu, and I officially open the proceedings of the Mbali Conference of 2022. Thank you all, and God bless you all. Thank you.
Dynamites come in small packages. Never underestimate the power within you. Thank you, Professor. No. We'd like to acknowledge the presence of Mr. Moses Dembe. He is one of our keynote speakers. I will allow Professor Reshaping now to come and introduce our first keynote speaker.
Thank you, Nana. I'm going to introduce Mr. Kaketsu Mtsweni. But what I first want to do is to tell you about his contribution to the Mbali Conference over the long term. Since 2016 onwards, where he first attended, and then 2018, where he started to help us to sponsor. Colleagues, without APSA, without his intervention, without his foresight, without his original thinking, but the one thing that I want to put in there is without his trust in the University of Zululand, in a very small faculty, it would never, ever have been possible to sit here today. It would not be possible to do it 2018. It would not be possible to do it 2020. It would not be possible to even just do the alternative years for emerging scholars. Without you, Kaketsu, and I'm going to call you that because you're my friend. I know that is not formal, but in South Africa, when it's your friend, you call them by the first name. It is not a concept of, and I want to tell you, it's not a concept where we just went to an institution and say, oh, please give us some money. That is not what happened. Kaketsu is not just a person that signed the check. He's a person that helped us and drive us and guide us in terms of what to do, how to think about this. We were very nervous during the pandemic in 2020 and 2021 because we know there is no surplus funds available in the country. There's no institution that will just say, oh, all right, let's throw money around, whilst there's such a high unemployment rate and slow growth rate. And we were very nervous about that. And thank you again for your trust in us, because I know money is scarce. And thank you that you trust that there is going to come out enough out of this, to be a good investment for South Africa, and in terms of the world, out of this conference. So, colleagues, without further ado, I want you to really just give this man, Kaketsu, a round of applause of being our Mbali ambassador. Thank you so much. Now to read you his formal CV really gives me a pleasure, and then you will understand why he is an ambassador for so much knowledge. He's currently serving as the Managing Executive of ABSA Relations Banking in KwaZulu-Natal and Mpumalanga. So 2 provinces, 2 difficult provinces, not 2 easy ones, 2 difficult provinces. He is an enthusiastic leader, and that we saw, who puts people and customers first. And UniZulu as well, and we really appreciate that. And this is through social and business initiatives that has contributed to the role that the bank plays in shaping society. He has extensive experience spanning over 17 years across banking and has held a number of specialist and leadership roles within the retail banking, wealth and private banking, and business banking. His forte is leadership, and it's only a leader that can take a risk of joining with a small university and assuring some funding. That is the qualities of an excellent leader in this. He holds a number of qualifications, an MBA from Mbali Business School. I don't have to say anything more about that. We're all jealous. A BCom Honours in Business Management, and a Bachelor's of Business Administration from UNISA. But more important, I went onto their website and I've looked at who is this man. And I picked there up one of the most important that he did is some of this executive leadership development that I can clearly see that shaped his ethos and values that he lives and advances and that we learn from. Sensitization to world trends, managing business complexities, and then sustainability of self, the organization, and the society. We are very proud to have you as a friend. We're very proud to have you as an ambassador, and we are very, very proud to introduce you to the audience and to give you an opportunity to speak to us. Thank you so much.
Give us a minute, please. Just a quick break. All right.
Thank you, Professor Greiling. I also did a bit of information technology, and that explains why I've got my speech not on the iPad, but on the trusted paper, because that's just how we roll. So let me first by acknowledging Professor Greiling. I think, Prof, you are far too kind. I am a boy who was born in a bath in Maseru, Lesotho on the 10th of May, 1983. And I then grew up in Fixbeck. So to hear giants as yourself speak like that about that small boy, I tell you, I might start acting my age with excitement. Professor Vezi Magigaba, the program director, Ambassador Suklal, His Excellency Arif Mata of Singapore, in South Africa, Mr. Moses Dembe, who is the keynote speaker. So I'm just the guy that has just come to clean the stage for Mr. Dembe. I don't want you to, please don't raise your expectations. The speaker is still coming. This is just the bank doing what the bank does best. ABSA executives and colleagues, UniZulu leadership and team that are here, dignitaries, delegates, and postgraduate students. And I would like to observe all protocol because I know that as we get onto the program, there are many dignitaries and many important speakers today that join this meeting. We meet on the tail end of several challenges that have really hit our country, the globe, and our province in particular. It pains me to remind you of the devastating outcomes of COVID-19 on the lives and livelihoods of businesses, specifically the world over. the lockdowns that we would have seen the government implement globally to preserve lives and protect citizens from the monster of this disease that was so elusive and created a divide amongst the population, with people taking unfortunate sides that led to what we now see as polarization on the back of a very tiny element of whether they elected to be vaccinated or not. We see that there are global groupings. We have the vaxxers and the anti-vaxxers, and they are followed by a number of debates. And I have seen interesting places where research of the vaccine was done. Some of it, the vaxxers, I think the research came from reputable sources. But to be an anti-anything just means you can oppose as you see fit. And it was amazing to see that debate playing itself out. But when this was happening, we saw many people lose lives on either spectrum of the philosophy, because what we realized is that whether you ridiculed each other or not on social media, it did not change what your fate was. We found that what then happened is economies were then closed. We have always grown up in the past years around globalization and how economies need to open up. But in self-preservation, we saw a number of countries prioritizing their own first, very much against what we have seen in recent history. I must remind you, ladies and gentlemen, of the sad story of vaccine distribution, where we realized that the plight of the poor and the underdeveloped economies was mostly the story of Mother Africa. While advanced economies were able to develop, manufacture, distribute vaccines in the arms of their people, the African states, for a very long time, all they could do was to use the tools that they had at their arsenal, and that was restricting movement and closing economic activity. And this, if you consider what happened around, is that a number of small businesses particularly had to close their doors. We saw households struggling because breadwinners either succumbed to the disease or succumbed to the decisions of companies that responded to the slow economic activity by cutting jobs. As we contend with these challenges, dealing with what we call the proverbial deck of cards that we were dealt globally, we in KwaZulu-Natal and parts of Gauteng were met with a challenging set of circumstances that arose as a result of what we saw as the unrest in 2021. And that unrest was characterized by destruction of property, looting, and unfortunately, loss of lives. The instability permeated across all areas of our lives, and we saw confidence being lost by investors. We saw what was actually interesting, certain jobs leaving our province because companies were looking for certain stability that at the time our beautiful province unfortunately could not provide. Then need I remind you of what happened this year when Mother Nature also dealt us yet another deck of cards. In my culture and in many African cultures, rain is seen as a blessing. But I learned that, too much of a blessing, we always get told that too much of a good thing is not good. But as it pertains to ice cream, I don't think that's the truth. But we realized that as it pertained to rain, that was quite the truth. And all what we saw is that with this destruction that came with the flooding, people that lived in makeshift homes, people that also either did not insure or underinsured their properties, were also left devastated. A lot of the devastation, really, if you look at insurance, it's putting you back in the state that you were in before. But I wonder if I just consider in the family, there are certain things that hold certain memories for people. Mementos, people traveled all over the world and they had certain things. People were passed down photos of their great-grandfathers that cannot be reproduced. And all those were washed away, and I don't think insurance can ever replace that. So those are some of the things that we are dealing with. And unfortunately, to this very day, we are sitting with the reality of people who remain homeless. We are sitting with the reality of what is the story of KwaZulu-Natal post the three challenges that we have had to deal with. Ladies and gentlemen, let me draw to a quick conclusion. And as I do that, I would like to commend what we saw as the spirit of the people of KwaZulu-Natal, where they refused polarization. If you listen closely to the story of the unrest, it quickly became about a race and a racial issue. If you look at what was happening with the issue of the flooding, it quickly became about the haves and the have-nots, and that can also be traced along our history in South Africa. But today, as we stand here, I want to confirm that what I have seen happening in this beautiful province of ours is that many people have come together to deal with that. And by the way, because I also speak at this conference as a member of the ABSA leadership team, I cannot sit down without just reminding you of our contribution, more than the funding, but the work that we did with some of the ABSA executives in terms of just working with government and working with NPOs to respond to what we saw as the damage that was caused by the floods. For those of you that are from KwaZulu-Natal and understand Durban very well, there are places that are called hostels. And we found ourselves, and that is unfortunately, as our history says, that's where you'll find a lot of African males who are housed in those places. And then because of socio-economic challenges, it just becomes a very difficult place for people to live, but people are living there. We found ourselves with one of our colleagues in one of such hostels delivering mattresses and food on the Easter Sunday, and it was very late. And as we were about to start the work, you can just imagine what happened as to what could have gone wrong. And that is the issue of electricity in South Africa, is that as you plan your life, it can go off at any time, and you need to contend with that. And we found ourselves in this situation. And before we could think about our safety, we remembered the fact that there were children that were running around. And that is the reality that we live in. Now, if you look at those challenges and you compound them with the fact that you've got small businesses that have gone out of business, you've got people that have been actually taken out of jobs because of those realities, then you can start understanding as to what it is that we are dealing with, which therefore means that the job that the bank has got to do and the job that the banking industry has got to do, I think it's clearly cut out for us. And it will be interesting to see as we move into the new world, the new normal, what is the role that we need to be playing as banks in terms of funding small businesses, in terms of helping people get onto their feet. And I think if one was to just consider that today we are standing here at this international conference, which if it was not because of people like Professor Nomlomo, Professor Hreiling, and Professor Kes of the University of Zululand, this boy who grew up at 25 Piet Retief Street in Vicksburg would not be standing here on this platform. So we must commend UniZulu for continuing, because one of the things that we had to decide was whether we were going to cower behind what we see as COVID, or whether we're going to charge ahead and continue the investment. And this is not the investment. Is one of those things that we are doing that are beyond ourselves. I don't think any of us can ever take any credit, Professor Hreiling. The relationship that UniZulu has with ABSA started in 1967. And I won't tell you what 1967 is to me, because I might now start creating stories because I was not around. But what I realize is that it is our jobs as stewards to make sure that what we found, we live better than how we found it. And that is why this relationship for us is so important. You might think that ABSA benefits, you benefit from this, but I can tell you the fact that I stand next to a university logo and I'm addressing professors and PhD candidates, etc., with just a bank clerk from Umhlanga, you will appreciate how we are elevated by this. I think as I close, Prof, I just want to talk about a quick thing that we have seen. So what we have seen is the acceleration of e-commerce, and we have also noted that when we went into these lockdowns, the online buying and e-commerce was okay. But I just want to share a few numbers, because I was told that both as a banker and an academic, I can't leave this without sharing a few numbers. So I must say that what we saw is that Argentina, for instance, grew 75% in e-commerce in 2020. And when you look at the global average, we're sitting at 27%. And the Middle East and Africa were a bit of on the low side at 20% for the same period. But what we see as a bank and what we see as an industry is that the future of banking is changing. And along with it, many jobs have got to change. A lot of our strategies have got to change. And the story of brick and mortar seems to be a story of the past now as I look at some of the entrants that are keeping us awake at night. I must say, when you start identifying with your competition as brick and mortar, and together you are thinking about, what are we going to do? Because it looks like the force is coming from an angle that we never thought possible a few years ago. So as we come, Prof, we are also here to participate, but more to learn and listen to giants such as Mr. Moses Dembe, who are going to help us and guide us, because a lot of the wisdom that we use in our everyday life does not come from the offices that we sit in, but it comes from being exposed to platforms such as this one. So let me thank you. And I think as I step down, because Prof, you were so nice to me, Mr. Wandile has got a certificate here that we would like to issue to the University of Zululand, and that is the University of, that is the certificate of having banked with us for 55 years, as I said. That is the relationship that UniZulu has with ABSA. So thank you very much.
Very special. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. 50 years of banking relations. That is brilliant. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Program Director, thank you. And let me hand over back to you, lest we start dominating this conference as if it were a banking meeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Kekezo. Our sponsor has spoken, so we can now relax. He has set the ground for the entire Mbali conference. So without wasting further time, I would like to introduce our next keynote speaker, who is Mr. Moses Dembe. Moses Dembe, illustrious business career, spans almost 3 decades and includes spearheading several major developments in KwaZulu-Natal. His exploits include the development of the Point Waterfront, Suncoast Casino, the Richards Bay Eco Junction, as well as other industrial operations, including Geochem, Elgin Brown, Hammer, and numerous other retail enterprises. Mr. Dembe has served on boards of various JSE-listed companies, includes Mr. Price Group, Suntover, and Beach Holdings. Moses strongly believes that a society is not a simple conglomeration of a large group of people, but the true mettle of society is measured by its binding conscience, common values, norms, and common purpose. This, he asserts, becomes the building blocks of a successful and progressive society. Mr. Dembe is a business leader per excellence and preeminent captain of industry. Mr. Dembe, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Vezimaki Kaba. She's indeed a lively program director, isn't it? Good morning to you all. Like Mr. Mutswene, let me introduce myself by saying I am Moses Dembe, born in the township of Lamontville on the 28th of May, more than 60 years ago. Yes. I have been truly, deeply humbled by this invitation. Thanks for finding me worthy of your honor. It's always a pleasure to rub shoulders with professors and scholars of your caliber it's a pity education never just rubs off. One has to burn that proverbial midnight oil over years. Special recognition must go to Mr. Koketso Mutswene, the ABSA Managing Executive for KZN in Mpumalanga. Whilst I've not been given this platform to give a vote of thanks, as a business convener in this province, I just feel obliged to thank ABSA for investing in a noble cause. Give them a big, big round of applause. Special recognition must go to the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Professor Vuyo Nomlomo. I see she's taken leave for us, and Professor Lorraine Greiling, Professor, and recognize the Deputy Dean, Professor Ishat Kasaram, the Deputy Dean of Research and Internationalization in the Faculty of Commerce, Administration, and Law. Maybe let me also recognize the organizing committee of this event. His Excellency, the High Commissioner of the Republic of Singapore, His Excellency Zainab Arif Mantahe. I hope I've pronounced it correctly, though I don't think my diction is spot on. We recognize this, we know the contribution of Singapore in this country and the world at large. I always tell people that we have a lot to learn from Singapore. I went to Singapore some 30 odd years ago, and I was amazed to see the level of innovation in Singapore when I visited recently. You really have done extremely well. Professor Kasaram assigned me to speak on a big topic beyond pandemic: rejuvenation, regeneration, and recovery through innovation. Professor, I'm going to disappoint you. Having spent very little time at school, I do not think I'll contribute much academic value to the title, and thought I should use this opportunity to give encouragement to all Mbali participants. On a lighter note, it is my view that Mbali is an effort that aims to give less credence to the story that most of you may have heard before. The story goes, African education system has surprising outcomes. The smartest students pass with first class and get admissions to medical and engineering schools. The second class students get MBAs and LLBs to manage the first class students. And the third class students enter politics and rule both first and second class students. The failures join the army and control politicians who, if they are not happy with, kick out or kill, literally, the first, second, and third class students. Best of all, those who did not attend school become prophets, and everybody follows them. If it's a light story, but believe me, whilst the story is an exaggeration of facts, if you read the front page of the Mercury today, I'm sure you get the Mercury, this part of KZN. I know that the Zululand Observer is the paper that most of you read, but I'm talking facts now. If you read the front page of the Mercury today, the front page, I'm talking front page in bold letters, it says, ancestral calling affecting pupils. Ancestral calling affecting pupils. And the MEC of Education in the province is calling for Indaba, which will be coming soon to receive representations from that faculty of traditional herbalist. And I support that. But all I'm saying is that they will probably go to that conference without properly researched papers, which is the topic of the day, the importance of research and the importance and the relevance of you professors, scholars in the development of our country and the development of societies around the world. We are here to reflect on a well-timed and forward-looking theme beyond the pandemic: rejuvenation, regeneration, and recovery through innovation. The use of the word beyond excites me, as I learned way back then that winners play the cards they are dealt. They do not waste time decrying the unfortunate deck they received. It's been 3 years since COVID-19 was declared a global pandemic. In rather neck-breaking speed, we are flying blind into some very, very uncertain future that's out there. The consensus is that COVID will become endemic from pandemic, which means that we will live with it like we do with flu, though with much less grave consequences. It is not a light switch event to get into an endemic phase, because it is as much about the behavior and psychology that will all exhibit as it is about the epidemiology of the virus itself. But as people, we have had to think not outside the box, but rather with box in front of us. We could not simply come up with solutions, as this was a new dynamic we faced. It makes sense to me to focus beyond COVID-19. Since thrust of my task leans on words of encouragement, I'll not spend much time on the definition of terms renovation, regeneration, recovery, and innovation. I know most of you would lecture me properly on these concepts. The new normal is the place we are finding ourselves today. We must recognize that globally, regionally, nationally, and locally, the reality of commerce and industry is changing at an astonishing rate. And hence we need to be more observant to the trends which characterize these changes. We need to understand their impact, plan, and respond accordingly and with speed. Your work as researchers has been cut out. Did you ever think that you would see a day where the global way of doing things change so dramatically and, dare say, drastically? I look back to where we've been, where we are, and where we are going. It's been 2 years since COVID-19 was declared a global pandemic. One of the hardest things to deal with in this type of crisis is being able to go the distance. When the lockdowns began on the 26th of March 2020, few of us imagined the long road ahead, but that long road wasn't anticipated to the last minute. While progress in protecting lives and livelihoods was swift, new variants and other factors have since meant that there have been times when the virus has seemed to be one step ahead of every countermeasure. It is important to imagine multiple versions of the future over different time frames, because one of the realities that has been proven is that the unthinkable is now possible. In business terms, that could include Company A and Company B choosing to join forces, even though they used to be the bitterest of enemies. It could be that the market in which you are competing has disappeared and isn't going to come back. So you have to innovatively do something very different. For some organizations, near-term survival is the only agenda item and is still the case today. Others are peering through the fog of uncertainty, thinking about how to position themselves once the crisis has passed and things return to normal, or should I say, the new normal. The question is, what will normal look like? While no one can say how long the crisis will last, what we find on the other side will not look like the normal of the previous years. The following are the key learnings in reshaping the future that we see emerging. What we've seen is the emergence and a greater preference for local over global products and services. The need for resilience across supply chains, driving a move to bring sourcing closer to end markets. Suddenly, local became lekker again. And perhaps renewed resistance to globalization are all possible second-order consequences of the actions being taken now to cope with the coronavirus. The localization agenda is now more real than ever, The question is, are we capitalizing enough on the opportunity? One of the Durban-based companies which was importing products from India with lockdown was forced to look domestically because of borders being closed. They found a local supplier, and not only have they been able to continue operating, but their supplier has also now had to innovate and improve its systems and expand. What did this do? This enabled the creation of 80 new jobs that didn't exist in South Africa. If we support local business, we create jobs locally, but if we rely solely on imports, then we are creating jobs in another country. We have witnessed technology emerging in the space of being an enabler to creating linkages, from online schooling for our children to Zoom and MS Teams meetings to FaceTime, etc. Technology, which was there, was just propelled to the next level and continues to shrink a physical distance. It has also imposed another sense of efficiency, or some may even say invasion. Now, meetings can be set at any time where people don't have to travel anymore. Businesses are still trying to figure out how to operate in new ways. Resiliency is the key word that comes to my mind. That is the ability to absorb a shock and to come out of it better than the competition. This, for me, is the key to survival and long-term prosperity for any business. The McKinsey research on the 2008 financial crisis found that a small group of companies in each sector outperformed their peers. They did get hurt with revenues falling below industry average, but they recovered much faster. By 2009, the earnings of the resilient companies had risen 10%, while that of the non-resilient had gone down almost 15%. What characterized the resilient companies was preparation before the crisis. They typically had stronger balance sheets and effective response during crisis, specifically their ability to cut operating costs. Those in the property sector at the moment are in tears as several companies have downscaled their appetite for large office space. On the one hand, companies have had to look at their needs. Given this phenomena of virtual or remote working, a number of them have realized the benefits. This has meant that companies have had to relook at their full office requirements and only bring back to the office staff that really cannot operate efficiently remotely. The rest they've kept in their homes, and they work from their homes and other places. The converse is that the landlords have been given notice and they are now sitting with empty office blocks. What have some property owners done? They've gone into remote filing and off-site storage for companies. Others have repurposed their facilities to offer meeting rooms or offices which can be rented on a needs basis. Everyone has had to innovate and diversify their product offering. It is not easy, but business has to think with no box in front of it. The Wall Street Journal observed that the crisis has revealed serious weaknesses in succession plans of companies as leaders get sick and some pass on. Their operators and or deputies have not been equipped to take over across all aspects of operations. Companies are learning the hard way that succession planning has to go much deeper and much broader. This is particularly important for family-owned businesses. Are you ready for the eventuality of the owner passing away? We saw a number of these cases, particularly during the second wave, where we actually lost a number of industrious people and business people quite untimely and so quickly. Succession planning is critical for sustainability of companies and institutions, including universities, which have become businesses or that have got to be run like enterprises if they were to succeed and be self-sustaining. COVID-19 provided impetus to e-commerce, as Mr. Motswene said. We have seen companies like ShopRite with their 60/60 shopping, which has been dubbed a resounding success. And food delivery services such as Uber Eats, I'm sure you've used those facilities, Mr. D, that have really blossomed to service consumers. We see platforms such as Take a Lot, Planet 54, and so on that have been propelled to dizzy heights. What this did was also to create additional smaller delivery businesses in order to service this sector. Through innovation, we can create new jobs. If I go back to the McKinsey Global Institute, it estimated that 60% of all jobs could see more than 30% of their key tasks automated, affecting 400 to 800 million jobs around the world by 2030. According to the Brookings Institution, over the 3 recessions that have occurred over the past 30 years, the pace of automation increased during each session. Can we find a silver lining? I say yes, we can, if necessity is the mother of invention, and it often is. There are some positive outcomes of the coronavirus crisis. These are unlikely to come anywhere near to compensating for the human and economic toll it wreaked. However, given the general shortage of optimism at the moment, it may be heartening to consider a few encouraging possibilities. The death of distance continues to be very real and very positive. Individuals, communities, businesses, and governments alike are all learning new ways to connect. Almost everyone knows a story of the grandparent who finally learned to Zoom, Skype, or FaceTime. Businesses have adjusted well in South Africa. Businesses, and I take it universities as well, whenever I'm talking about the businesses, have learned how to operate remotely at high level and at far greater speed. These practices could well stick, making for better management and more flexible workforces. Some argue that flexible work is often critical to support employees at different stages of their lives. For example, parents with young kids find it more convenient. Business leaders now have a better sense of what can and cannot be done outside their company's traditional processes. Many are beginning to appreciate the speed with which their organizations can move once they change how they do things. In short, the coronavirus is forcing both the pace and scale of workplace innovation. Indeed, as businesses are forced to do more with less, many are finding better, simpler, less expensive, and faster ways to operate. As I conclude, these silver linings are thin compared with the scale of the coronavirus catastrophe. Nurturing a next normal that will be better than what it replaced will be a long-term test for all businesses and institutions. It will be critical to reconstruct for the future and not solve the problems of the past. One possible next normal is that decisions made during and after the crisis lead to less prosperity, slower growth, widening inequality, bloated government bureaucracies, and rigid borders. Or it could be that the decisions made during the crisis lead to a burst of innovation and productivity, more resilient industries, smarter government at all levels, and the emergence of a reconnected world. Neither is inevitable. Indeed, the outcome is probably more likely to be a mix. The point is that where the world lands is a matter of choice, of countless decisions to be made by individuals, companies, governments, and institutions. As a conclusion, education and skills upgrade need to feature as a central strategic thrust in the national development plan of our country. Education and skills upgrade must be aligned to industry. Whilst I agree I'm part of the crucible, I'm saying research and development must be spearheaded by institutions such as this one. Mbali must stay ahead of industry and actually drive technology development and advancement in the industry. The struggle to influence government and industry to contribute more funding to universities and institutions of research and development must continue. We need to build more specialized universities and ensure sufficient budgets within institutions are appropriated to research and development. The country must be worried about shocking levels of youth unemployment. Education and skills development must be used more efficiently as one of the critical tools. Everyone needs to worry more about the relevance of education at lower and high school levels. If we get right at that level, your task at universities will be a lot easier. More work must be done to students long before they get to the universities to inculcate that culture of innovation and develop their intellect and problem-solving mentality. Excusitis disease must be dealt with properly. I know that I'm using the word exercises. Many of you are checking if the word exists. It really doesn't exist. I just conceptualized it here. Because people find excuses for lack of progress, for lack of success in whatever they do. So I always say to people who work with me, really, excusitis is a disease I don't want in my workplace. As I conclude, really, I'm saying indeed rejuvenation, regeneration, and recovery through research. Through research, Professor, just add that. Through research and innovation is possible. And I just want to tell a little story, then sit down. There was this bright student of philosophy who approached his professor, end of the semester. He says to the professor, "Professor, I just want you to guess as to whether the bird in my hand is alive or dead." After a few minutes, the professor says, "Look, the secret," the student knew that if the professor said the bird is alive, he would simply squeeze it to death, and vice versa, he would just let it go if the professor said it's dead. If he said it's alive, he was going to squeeze it to death. And the professor says to the student, the secret of whether the bird in your hand is alive or dead entirely lies in your hands. So I want to say to Mbali people, the secret of whether you make a success or failure of this entirely lies in your hands. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dembe. Your words are encouraging. We will make sure that the success of Mbali is here. Exactly. Colleagues, we are running behind schedule. But all is well. To our doctoral candidates, I want to recruit you for ABSA now. When you graduate and you have that title, DR, please join ABSA and enjoy the benefits. Colleagues, we will continue with the program. However, if you feel the need to nibble, you can walk outside, get your coffee, and come back, please, so that we continue with the program. So the next speaker for today, our plenary speaker now, I will call upon Professor Dave Tiwari, who will introduce the next speaker. Thank you. Like I said, feel free, guys. Go outside, get your cup of coffee and your muffins if they're there, and then you come back. Then you sit down. Then another thing that I forgot at the beginning, please, can we have our cell phones on silent, please? Thank you.